All right, guys. Here in Module 4, Lesson 3, actually Lessons 3, 4, and 5, at least 3, 4, and 5, and even beyond there, we're going to work with square inch and square centimeter tiles and think about how we can cover rectangles with those tiles to measure area. And something that's really important, we've talked about this a little bit, but we're going to talk about it a lot more here in these lessons, is to consider the units that we're using when we're measuring. So for example, if I'm measuring in square inches, that's like one of these. But if I'm measuring in square centimeters, that's one of those. And those are very different. So if I have 4 of these, it's very different than having 4 of those. So even though the number might be the same, 4, that doesn't tell the whole story because 4 square inches is much larger than 4 square centimeters. Just like if I measured in 4 square miles, that would be much larger than 4 square inches or 4 square centimeters. So using our units and paying attention to units is critical. And that's a little bit of what we're doing here. And we're also going to um, expand upon that here in the next couple of lessons. But for today, let's just practice tiling with square inch and square centimeter tiles to find area. All right, I actually have the problem set here with me. And so I know you've already done it in class. We've talked about it a little bit in class, but I'm actually going to go over it again. And I'm going to go through it again and with my document camera. And that way you can, it's very similar to what the homework is. So you'll be able to see me sort of do some similar problems, the ones that you're being asked to do independently. So that said, let's share my screen and get started. All right, I have a ruler here as well that you can see. We'll use that here. I don't know if we use it in this lesson. We'll use it next lesson for sure. So slide that out of the way for a minute. Okay. There we go. Everything I do is reverse on the camera, so it's a little confusing sometimes. There we go. Each square is 1 square unit. What is the area of the following rectangles? So this type of question is straightforward and simple, right? It's just, it already fills it in. Like you already know how many, you can already see the squares in there. You can just count them if you want. And you're just identifying what the total is. So, A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 square units. Remember that square units is really important. It didn't tell us that these are square inch or square centimeter. So if it doesn't identify exactly what it is, you refer to it as a square unit. And that's always true. If you don't know exactly what it is in terms of the measurement, then you use square units instead. B, I'm going to look at this and say there's 2 rows, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to think of that like a 2 by 6 array, and we've done a bunch of this sort of work throughout the year. A 2 by 6 array I know has 12 things in it, so this must have 12 square units. Okay, and that's a little preview of here the next couple of lessons that we're going to be able to use multiplication to find area. Part C has 4 by 3. So 4, I know 4 times 3 is also 12 square units. And maybe it's helpful for you to still go back and double check and count them. So you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you can double check that there are 12 there. But I'm going to warn you now that that's a less efficient strategy, and it's going to be quicker and more accurate if you just multiply. And the last one has, let's see, 4 on the side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the top. So if 4 rows times 5 in each row is 20 square units. And again, I could group count by 5s here and go 5, 10, 15, 20, and double check to make sure that I had an accurate count there. Now notice every number had square units following it. And that's really important. It's so critical that we label our work in this case, in all cases really, but especially as we start to work with area, it's really important so that your answers can be complete and accurate. Let's move our paper up a little bit here and look at the next thing. So in this case, each square is 1 unit. what unit, or what is the area of each of the following rectangles? Similar type of problem, right? So you look at this first one, and you can see right away 6 square units there. So this is very similar to that first lesson, and in that first lesson, and we measured with rectangles, rhombus. What else do we use? Trapezoid, uh, to cover, and then we'd count how many were covering whatever shape we were measuring. In this case, we're just using squares, right? And squares are the thing that we use the most often when measuring area in real life, because everything's measured in square units. So it makes sense to measure with squares, like square tiles. The second one, we can see we have 3 rows of 3, right? That's a 3 by 3 array. And so 3 by 3 array is 9 square units. So when you say square units, really it just means there's 9 squares that are all the same size inside the shape. Good review, the area is a measure of the flat space inside of something. I'll go on to C, and I'll see that there's 4 rows of 4. So again, 4, 8, 12, 16. 16 square units. Notice I'm paying really close attention to making sure that I have square units on all of my problems here, all of my solutions rather. And then lastly, I have a 2 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 2 rows with 6 in each row. That's similar to, or exactly the same actually as the one I did on the first problem, and it's 12 square units. All right, that was practice in tiling or counting tiles to find area, square tiles to find area, um, where the tiles didn't have a unit themselves. Like we weren't measuring in inches, specific unit that is, inches, centimeters, miles, anything like that. Let's flip over to the next page and say, how would the rectangle in problem 1 be different if they were composed in square inches? So um, these were really like, here, I'm going to get out my square centimeter. I think these really, even though they say square units, I'm pretty sure they're centimeters. So let's see. Yeah, one of those fits right on there. So those are basically square centimeters. So that's like saying, I had a 2 by 6. Let's build them. Let's find out. Maybe 2 by 6 isn't the best one to use. 2 by 3. That will get the point across. So I'll do a 2 by 3 array with centimeter tiles. So this is eventually going to make a 6 square centimeter model for you. So there you see 6 square centimeters, right? Now I'm going to make 6 square inches using my square inch tiles. All right. And there we go. We can see that 6 square centimeters is considerably smaller than 6 square inches. So we talked about this in lesson 2 a lot, and it's really important that you don't pay attention just to the number. So you can't look and say, oh, they're both 6, they must be equal. Well, this demonstration here shows that 6 square centimeters is way smaller than 6 square inches. So again, I sound like a broken record repeating myself over and over, but units are so important. You have to accurately consider what the units are on each of your problems. So I can move those away and say, um, if we used square inches instead of square centimeters, the rectangles would be much larger. If you want to get really in depth here, and I would really appreciate this if you did, you could say this is true because inches are larger than centimeters. All right, so that's a common question you're going to come across in this lesson and in this unit is comparing the size of units. And it's really just trying to drive home that point that you have to do more at this point than just look at the number. It's not enough to just look at the number and say, I know how big this is, right? So if I said, um, you know, if I said one thing is 6 square meters and one thing is 6 square miles, right? Those aren't equal. They're not even close. 6 square meters is it's like half the size of our classroom, right? But 6 square miles is like a considerable chunk of our town. So you have to consider the unit and pay attention to the unit in order to understand how large an area is being taken up by something. Says select one rectangle in problem 1 and recreate it on a square inch and square centimeter grid paper. We just did that. That's what I did when I pulled out those cubes and showed you. And so we can move on to part 4 here. Let me move my camera down. It says use a separate piece of paper. Use a separate piece of square centimeter grid paper. Draw 4 different rectangles that each has 8 square centimeters. So I'm actually just going to create some of those for you rather than draw them since I have the cubes here. Here we go. This one is a 2x4. This one's a 1x8. 5, 6, 7, and 8. And there's no other two numbers that multiply together to make 8. So the next two things you do would be to do a 8x1 and a 4x2. So we're going to do the turnaround facts, if you will, of the ones that we've already done. 5, 6, 7, and 8. And let's see if I brought enough of these things home from school to do and to complete. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so that would be a representation of all 4 rectangles that you could make with 8 square centimeters, an area of 8 square centimeters. Right, so we have an 8x1, a 1x8, a 2x4, and a 4x2. And again, all those have the same area. They look different, but they have the same area. All right, the key takeaways from this lesson are 1, getting involved with square units because that's something that we're going to use a ton. You'll use that for the rest of your life as you're measuring area. And 2 is to pay close attention to whatever that unit is. So look at to see if it's centimeters, inches, miles, meters, or whatever, because that label is critical in understanding how large something actually is. So just pay attention to detail. That's like a big thing in 3rd grade math, and a big thing in math in general is paying attention to detail and paying attention to units in particular. So, all right, guys, we're going to have some similar work, like I said, here in the next couple of lessons. So I'm going to let you go for now, and I'll be back with you for lesson 4 in module 4 tomorrow.